Welcome back, Bears fans, to another episode of the Chicago Audible. I'm Russell DeWitt, and I want to welcome you to our Week 10 preview show. I'm accompanied by my co-host, Nicholas Moriano. The two of us, we're ready to break down everything you need to know before this week's divisional matchup against the Detroit Lions. Nick, 4 straight losses, another game where we have to preview. You hanging in there?
Somehow, some way, I'm hanging in there, Will. And yeah, 4 straight losses. It's hard to lose a 5th straight game. But the Bears, they might find a way. But we're hanging in there though.
Yeah, we're tried and true. I was telling you right before we went live. We stick around. Doesn't matter what the Bears are doing. We're here to do what we do best, and that's talk about Bears football. I just wanted everyone to know before we kind of jump in, since we are a day late and we're heading into the weekend. I do want to let you know that this show is going to be an express version of our normal preview show. And Nick, you want to tell everyone why that you made us wait a whole day to do this preview?
Oh, yeah, it is my fault. No, well, I did decide to go to Hogan John's live podcast. The restaurant was called Kroll's at South Loop. Really nice venue. Met a couple of the fans of the podcast. Want to give a shout out to Vamsi, who I took a picture with, tweeted on the account. Really cool guy. Loves the podcast. Was also there to see Hogan John's do their thing. But yeah, I just wanted to go and check that out. But I'm sorry, you guys, for putting this a day late. But now we're doing it right now. Yeah,
you better be. I'm out of the flow. It feels like a Thursday night, not a Friday night over here. But you have your Red Bull, so you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, the Red Bull is now done. I'm amped up, ready to go.
All right. Well, like I said, express version of the show. So let's go ahead and kind of get through this in expedited fashion. And to begin, let's take a look at the Bears' defense. They're going to be going up against a Lions offense that can move the ball really well through the air, but they do struggle to consistently be effective on the ground. So let's go ahead and first look at that Lions passing attack. Matthew Stafford, he's playing some of the best football I've seen out of him in quite some time. His favorite target this season is Kenny Galladay, who leads the team with 62 targets and 640 receiving yards. Then you have Marvin Jones, who's catching 73 of all the footballs thrown his way. Those two wideouts, they combine for 13 touchdowns through the air. That about doubles all the Chicago Bears wide receivers combined. Detroit, they also have Danny Amendola in the slot. And Nick, someone who you and I saw way back in training camp, Marvin Hall, a deep threat who did make a ton of plays in training camp on those deep balls. He has 5 catches this year for 200 yards. Quick translation, that's 40 yards per catch for Marvin Hall this year. So obviously all of this, Nick, I don't know if you know, but this adds up to that Detroit offense being first in the NFL in yards per completion. So obviously very potent passing attack. What are some of the keys to kind of stop it?
Oh, that's a good question because Matthew Stafford's been really on his game. And when you have the weapons that the Detroit Lions do, that's why you put up the numbers that they have. So I think a big thing for stopping these wide receivers, and look, Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay, really good wide receivers, but they don't create a lot of separation. They're just really good at contesting for those 50-50 balls. So I think the matchup or the way to kind of stop these guys is really at the line of scrimmage. And really that's going to be Prince Amukamara, who's going to be in that tight coverage, that one-on-one, really jam them at the line so you're not able to get where you need to be. And if you put that off, get that timing off just a little bit with Matthew Stafford, that can result to an incompletion. But he's been pretty good all season at finding where to put the ball, finding these receivers and putting in the right spot despite there being tight coverage. So it is really a tough cover for regardless of what Bears defenders are on these receivers because they have been producing all season for the Detroit Lions.
Now, of course, you're going to have Danny Amendola, who's going to really work this defense underneath, who I think he's going to get his looks and his yards. He's not really a big play type of guy, but they have a few on this offense. And looking at Kenny Galladay, looking at Marvin Jones, they really push that ball down the field. They like to throw it past the sticks, and we've seen the Bears give receivers a ton of cushion this year. Do you think that could be a recipe for, not disaster for the Bears defense, but one that goes in favor of Detroit to kind of, get that ball out quick on some quick hitches that are just past the sticks and some routes like that? Because when I'm looking at Detroit and looking at how the Bears defense usually lines up against an offense, I do see that quicker passing game and some tempo kind of giving us some fits.
Yeah, but I think that's almost plays into the game that the Bears would rather see from these Detroit Lions receivers because they make a lot of big plays. So if they're stopping them on these short, maybe 7-yard hitches or, these quick out routes, I'd rather have that than the big plays that I was seeing last week against Oakland where, it's either it's Galladay or it's Jones just going up and making this big play, this long completion. Yes, you will give up those yards, and the Bears haven't been as good in the red zone as they were a season ago, but I'd rather have that instead of one of those big plays and then going up tempo. We saw that a couple times where that will happen to this Bears defense. After a big play, tempo, score. So I'd rather have it that way than the other way around where it's the big play kind of hurts you. But again, if the defense is out there like they have been, this tempo is definitely going to play a factor, later in the game probably because the offense not doing their job and staying on the field. But I would rather see that way play out for the Detroit Lions, these short passes, as opposed to the big passing game that they are capable of making.
No, I just want to get your opinion here. We know all these receivers, and they're going to line up across the field. Is there one matchup that would go heavily in Detroit's favor if they can get it that would worry you?
So right now I think with Kyle Fuller and how he plays his cornerback position, being that 7 yards off, I'm not too worried with his guy. It's whether or not it could be either Jones or Golladay. They're really good at that fighting at the line of scrimmage, but Prince Amukamara would be the matchup right now with one of those bigger wide receivers that if he's not able to disrupt them, and that's a big part of Prince Amukamara's game, that goes in favor of that Detroit Lions receiver. And it is only the two guys, Golladay and Jones, but that's the thing. If the Detroit Lions are able to win that matchup more times than not, expect a big day out of whichever receiver that is, because these guys are putting up, it looks like they might have career years, both of these guys. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to have that be the reason why the Bears will lose. I'm expecting, again, they didn't do it earlier when they played Michael Thomas or, other of these big number one receivers. You bracket that receiver, but the Bears haven't shown that they'll do that. So I think what Chuck Pagano is going to want to do, it's going to be a lot on Prince Amukamara to really win at the line of scrimmage to disrupt these receivers. But, yeah, it's really whoever's on that side is who I'm worried about.
And our guest a few days ago, he was talking about that both Golladay and Marvin Jones, they've been doing a great job with contested catches this year. So even if defenses are in good coverage and you're jamming the guy at the line of scrimmage and you're playing tight coverage throughout the entirety of the route, they're still finding ways to end up with the football in their hands. So even if the Bears can have good coverage, these guys may just win those one-on-one matchups, those contested catches on this come Sunday. But let's go ahead. Let's move right along and look at the Lions on the ground. Kerryon Johnson, he's an IR. Looking at the Lions, they haven't had 100 yards on the ground since week 4. And without Johnson, they really don't have a workhorse back there. Instead, it's a combo of guys like J.D. McKissic, Ty Johnson, and Paul Perkins. Now, looking at the Bears' defense, they've allowed 111 yards on the ground per game on average over their last 3 weeks. Obviously, on paper, I think the Bears have quite the advantage here. But, Nick, does that seem right to you? The Bears shouldn't be overly tested in terms of the Lions running the football, right?
Yeah, no, I think this is a matchup that the Bears like in their favor. And, Detroit's always been a team that has struggled to run the football, even when they've had, I guess somewhat good receivers, but good running backs, but they just don't commit to the run very often. And now that you have, guys that are filling in for your starter, it's not like they're going to commit to it. Because, look, Stafford's having a season where you can kind of rely on that until it hurts you at one point. And I expect them to come into Chicago wanting to pass a lot more than running. Of course, you want to establish the run. But, again, this Bears defense, even though it has regressed from last year, it's still capable of, stopping offenses that are not very good run teams. Last week wasn't a good showing against Philadelphia, but I think they'll have a way better day against the Detroit Lions on Sunday.
They haven't been good over the last few weeks. We've been talking about that in post-game shows where, we come here on, I almost said Thursday. See, you're throwing off my week, Nick. But we come on here during the midweek. Like, yeah, Bears defense, they should be able to take advantage. And then come Sunday, they don't live up to expectations, and they look a little bit more soft up front due to Akeem Hicks being out and some guys not, stepping up for the challenge. But, yeah, I agree. In terms of the matchups here, the Bears look like they have the favor. Let's see if the Lions don't stick with it. They don't really have a guy back there they can lean on. Let's see if that kind of helps us in terms of making the Lions one-dimensional. And then once that happens, you have to find a way to stop it. And not many teams have found a way to stop the Lions through the air, and it's up to the Bears defense to find out what the solution is to that problem. Do you have anything else either on the Lions offense or the Bears defense this week?
No, I mean, look, Matthew Stafford is going to take his shots and his opportunities, especially when you have Golladay and Jones Jr., who can make that contested ball. So expect that. Even when guys look like they are covered and there's maybe a safety over the top, Matthew Stafford's going to take that shot. He trusts these guys right now. They're playing some good football. That's going to make or break this Bears defense, whether or not Stafford's able to complete those 50-50 balls. And this season, he's been really good at just putting the ball in only one spot where these receivers can get it. Do you see some of the throws he made in that Raiders game? The guys are covered. They are completely covered, but these guys are coming down with the football. So that's a big thing come Sunday. And look, Eddie Jackson, Hocklin, Dix, they haven't been on the better side of winning those one-on-one matchups as of late at the safety position, and there hasn't been as many turnovers. So that could go into favor for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, they have a lot of chemistry, Stafford and all of his guys right now. And that chemistry, that mojo, that magic that they're playing with, it's real. That's a real thing in football when you have that kind of connection. And it's really working for Detroit right now, and hopefully the Bears, like I said, can stop it. Real quickly, red zone third down. Looking at the red zone, the Bears defense, they rank 13th in the NFL. They allow teams to score in about 53% of the time, where the Lions, they rank lower. They're 17th on offense, but they do convert in the red zone, scoring touchdowns on 58% of those trips. And then on third down, another pretty close matchup here. The Bears defense is 9th in the NFL. This is a number that keeps dropping every week, by the way. But they are currently 9th, allowing teams to convert on about 35% of third downs, where on the Lions offense, they rank 13th. This is probably due to being one-dimensional, but they only convert on 41% of all third downs this season. All right, well, up next, we are going to tell you who we think has the edge between the Bears defense and the Lions offense, and of course, we're going to talk about our X factors as well. But before we do, I need to call a quick timeout to tell you a little bit about our show sponsor, Wrigleyville Sports. Wrigleyville Sports is one of the premier Chicago sports merchandise stores in the entire city of Chicago, and their goal is to bring the city team gear happiness all straight to the fans. So if you're looking for any of the latest Bears gear, they have it. From hats to sunglasses to t-shirts and jerseys, make sure to check out WrigleyvilleSports.com. And like I mentioned last week, they also have quite the selection of some holiday merch like ornaments, Chicago Bears gift tags, so definitely check that out. And pretty cool deal here. We can get you 15% off and free shipping on your order. And all you need to do is use our promo code AUDIBLE, AUDIBLE, for 15% off and free shipping on any order of $25 or more. So if you're looking for any of the Bears gear this holiday season or any of the other Chicago teams for you, yourself, some family member, you really can't beat this deal. Again, 15% off and free shipping any order of $25 or more at WrigleyvilleSports.com. And our promo code again is AUDIBLE, AUDIBLE. Alrighty, you're listening to the Chicago Audible Podcast. I'm Russell DeWitt. I'm joined by my co-host Nicholas Moriano. We're doing an express version of our preview show. And Nick, it's time to find out who has the edge between the Lions on offense and the Bears on defense. And I'm going to give you what I believe is a cakewalk. And you already said it once, so you can say it again. The Lions ground game versus the Bears run defense.
It should be the Bears run defense, but we've sided with the Bears before in the past, and they haven't shown up on Sunday. But this is shaping up for the Bears to win that matchup.
All right, I'm going to give myself Lions passing game versus the Bears secondary. Nick, I'm going with the Lions passing attack here. Like I told you, I think that magic and that connection's real, and they've proved it all season long. It's really going to be hard to slow down the Lions through the air. They'll be doing it a lot on Sunday due to that one-dimensionalism we've talked about. I think some of the playmakers, you have a Galladay, and heck, Marvin Hall, I mentioned him again, that deep threat. He just needs one catch to make his impact felt. So I think they're going to find some holes in his secondary. Won't be a lot. You and I were talking about it before we went live. We're just kind of, yapping back and forth. It just takes a drive or two on this defense to change the dynamic of the entire game just due to the Bears' ineptitude on offense. So for me, just due to the slim margins of what's the difference between failure and success for the Bears as a team, I'm going to give the Lions passing game the very slight edge here. But let's go ahead and share Lions offensive line versus that Lions offensive line, Bears offensive. Wait, no, I'm right. Lions offensive line versus the Bears pass rush. I shouldn't have in my notes Lions offensive line versus Lions Bears pass rush. That's pretty weird. Outside expedited notes, you're going to have mistakes in them, but you know what I mean. The Lions, their offensive line versus Khalil Mack and company. Who would you give the edge to?
So I think I'm going to give the slight edge to this Bears pass rush. I think when you look at the Lions tackles, when you have Decker, the left tackle, Wagner at the right tackle, I think this is one where you can see maybe a Khalil Mack kind of come back. I know that maybe obviously the past couple of weeks the stats haven't reflected his impact, but still you got to recognize that people are throwing double teams, triple teams. This is supposed to set up other people for success. Leonard Floyd, I mean, he did get a sack last week, but I think this is the matchup where Khalil Mack can really have his presence felt again at Soldier Field. And remember that play that he made last year, I want to say that was Decker again at that left tackle, where he blows by him, goes through the other guy, sacks Stafford, and does that little tilter, that little somersault, whatever it was at the end to kind of celebrate, cartwheel. And yeah, so I think you give it slightly to the Bears. They got to get creative, though, when they bring the pressure. It's not just the front seven. There's a buster screen that you can bring in. So there's other ways to create pressure, but I have to give it to the Bears.
All right. I'm going to balance you here because I'm going with the Lions. I'm going to give it to their offensive line. They're only allowing 2 sacks per game. The Bears, on average, get about 2 sacks per game, over their last 3 at least. You're looking at Taylor Decker, their left tackle. I think that is someone the Bears can take advantage of. But I feel like the Lions know this, so they're going to give him the help. We've seen teams do this week in, week out against Chicago. Same thing with the right tackle, Rick Wagner. So to me, it's another game where I'm looking at the opposing offensive line, and the tackles aren't great. The interior is more solid. We've talked about this week in, week out, it seems like, with every team. And we're like, oh, yeah, Mack and Floyd and Aaron Lynch, they should be all right. They should have a decent game. And it doesn't happen. They're missing in action. So until I see them return to action, I'm going to give, and sadly, I'm going to have to give this one to the Lions. I want to give it to the Bears. I believe in the talent, or at least I should believe in the talent, or at least the potential, but they're not living up to it. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and give that one over to the Lions on offense, which leads us to our X factor. You talked about a lot of guys here for that Bears defense that can, be real pivotal. Who's going to be the X factor?
I think when it comes down to it, a lot of what the Lions want to do goes through their passing game. And in this matchup, when you have a guy like Kyle Fuller, you expect him, or he has to come up and be big in this game, regardless of it is Galladay or Jones that is on his side, and he's asked to cover this guy one-on-one or break on passes that are short. He needs to play well, and I think he's going to be the X factor, especially if he can cause a turnover. That's the guy right now that I have the most confident in, other than Khalil Mack probably, to cause a turnover, is Kyle Fuller. So I think when it comes down to it, those one-on-one matchups, he needs to be on the winning side of those. Or if they don't, this Lions offense is going to have a lot of success, stay on the field longer, and, probably score some points. But I think that's going to be a huge matchup regardless of whatever receivers out there. But it has to be Kyle Fuller coming up big.
All right, I'm going secondary as well, but I'm going to go with Eddie Jackson. I think he is going to be tested in this game down the field. Like I've said, the Lions really tend to push the ball past the sticks. They're 4th in the NFL in yards per pass attempt, and like I said, they're leading the NFL in yards per completion. So they're going to give Marvin Hall, 1 to 2 bombs downfield to really just take the top end of that defense to give them a test, and they've been hitting those pretty well. And on top of that, Marvin Jones, he can get a few deep shots. Kenny Galladay's not opposed to getting those as well. So for me, our center fielder and Eddie Jackson, he's going to be needing to be in position and to take over on some of these routes when they're doing some zone coverage. So communication. I talked about this, I think 3 weeks ago, when I really highlighted communication between corners and safeties being a huge thing, and it ended up losing us the game. So I'm going to highlight it here again because with these deep threats, it's going to be really pivotal in this game. All right, well, we're already halfway through the show, which is crazy, Nick. It feels like we should be on topic like number 2, but unfortunately, it is time to take a look at the Bears' offense, and they're going to be going up against a defense in Detroit that also has its fair share of struggles, but perhaps it's the Bears' offensive struggles that outweigh the problems in Detroit. Either way, we're going to discuss, but no matter how you look at it, this is bad versus bad, or really bad versus really bad. Just to put it in perspective, the Bears have gained over 300 yards just one time all year, where the Detroit Lions defense has been unable to hold any opponent under 350 yards this year. So who knows what we're going to see when it comes between these two units, but I'm sure it's going to be putrid. To be blunt, I don't think it's going to be pretty whatsoever. But looking at the Lions defense, they give up the second most yards per game through the air at 288. They allow that despite having the 4th lowest completion rate against them at only allowing 60% of the passes to be completed against them. So obviously they're allowing a ton of yards per completion. That number's up to 12. And they allow about 2 touchdowns through the air per game on average against. Yet, despite all of their struggles in coverage, Nick, I'm having a hard time believing Trubisky and the Bears are going to find a ton of success passing the ball on Sunday. Are you in the same boat, or do you think the Detroit Lions defense is so bad we can actually throw the ball effectively?
I think it is possible, Will. I really do think it's possible for Mitch Trubisky and Matt Nagy to get things right this game. When I was watching the film, what the Lions were doing defensively against the Oakland Raiders, they don't have a very complex offense. They like to run the ball, short pass with Derek Carr, very efficient passer. That's why he has those games where he doesn't put up very good numbers, but he's still winning games. What they like to do, they like to throw a lot of drag routes over the middle where they'll have their targeted guy go over, but then they'll have the backside receiver also run a drag, kind of creating that natural pick, making one of these guys wide open. Guess what? That's an easy throw for any quarterback to make, even Mitch Trubisky. So I think in this game, you could see some of these easy completions. And look, Will, when I was watching these linebackers for the Detroit Lions, they're god awful. Like, they just don't understand how to guard play action passes. They get so sucked into play action, it keeps wide open voids in the defense. This could be a game where it finally happens. Not saying that it will, but it could. It's all set up for it to be. But again, you go back and you mention what the Bears have not been able to do on offense and what the Lions defense has given up. This should be a matchup where it could go either way, but it is there to be taken advantage of. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's available.
It's available. Like you said, I really don't know if it's going to happen. You talked about the natural pick plays. Have you seen Chicago run any of those?
I haven't seen Chicago run any of anything.
I think you're trying to say something a little different there, but I think I caught on and you're going to say. But anyway, yeah, I haven't seen them run anything either. They haven't run it at all. And honestly, again, I don't know. I don't see them running any complex schemes like that. And they're not complex, but just those natural routes that create a little friction between a couple defenders that open guys up. We haven't seen any of that. It's been a lot of isolated routes, a lot of real simple short routes, which we talked about where they have to turn around, present themselves to Trubisky, and even then, we don't know if he's going to hit them. So I'm really, again, and even if they find mild or moderate success, you can't get excited about it. This is the Detroit Lions defense that is, again, bottom of the barrel. So it's as much as hey, great, you do it. Maybe it's going to be, we'll be excited for one game. But that's it. You can't really take much stock into any success the Bears offense finds this week. I won't even look at it as a building block. It's like, okay, you did what you could do against a very subpar defense, but do you have any keys to success or any favorable matchups through the year? Because obviously you talked about the linebackers. Gerard Davis and Christian Jones, looking at them specifically, they allow about 75% of catches when they're targeted, about 12 yards per catch, and a passer rating over 100. So I think, of course, if you can find a way to exploit these linebackers in coverage, in theory, that should work out well. What about you?
Yeah, so I mean, sticking with those linebackers, that's definitely going to be a good matchup. I would say either one of these safeties for the Lions, but really, we other than the deep ball to Taylor Gabriel, we haven't seen many completions down deep to where Mitch Trubisky is going to take advantage of. Like we said, and we can, just keep this entire conversation going every single week because it all depends on what number 10 can actually take advantage of. And it hasn't been much all season. So I think what it's going to come down to is whatever's closer to the line of scrimmage. So that's going to be the one-on-one matchups against the linebackers. It's using David Montgomery against, again, these linebackers. And also this defensive line, they're missing some key starters. Just looking at what ESPN has on the injury report for the Lions, they're going to be without Tracy Walker. He was out. Well, he was out in terms of practice today. Deshaun Hand in practice. That's not a good sign for coming up for Sunday's game. So maybe they're going to be even without these key contributors on defense. But can the Bears take advantage of that? I don't think so. I don't know. We haven't seen it, so there's no hope. I'm giving you the recipe for success. Whether or not the Bears do it, it's up to them, and they haven't done anything all season.
Yeah, there's one thing to have the ingredients in front of you. It's another way to, add them in the right order with the right amounts and make it all work. So I understand exactly what you're meaning there, Nick. One other area that I would say to kind of potentially exploit would be two of the corners, two of the three. Anyone not named Darius Slay is a good shortcut to this one, but if you're looking at Melvin or Coleman, Coleman, he has allowed 6 touchdowns this year. That's more than Trubisky has thrown this year. Again, disgusting stat, but other than that, when I'm looking at Melvin, he's not really strong as well. So if you stay away from Darius Slay, pretty much you should have a field day against the Detroit Lions defense. But again, I just can't get over, Nick, the sour taste in my mouth from the first half of last week's game. I really can't. That took away all my confidence in this offense. And even when they started moving the ball a little bit and they put up some points in the second half, again, I can't get over it. I don't know what it is. It's been really sticking in my mind all week, but I've never seen a half of football so bad from any Bears offense. And I've seen some really, really bad Bears offenses. And I know the talent's there. I know there's talent. Maybe not the talent, the most important position, but around there's talent. So that's what's really frustrating. But moving on to the ground game, the Bears, they're still struggling to run it a ton. 21 attempts on average over the last 3 weeks. In the 3 weeks which we've been focusing on running the ball, that's still 5th least in the NFL. And for the season, they still kind of hover around 80 yards per game on average. There may or may not be some changes up front, Nick, that you want to talk about for the Bears' offensive line, but either way, they're going to be going up against a defense that allows nearly 140 yards on the ground per game on average and nearly 5 yards per carry. So there is really no excuse, and I mean none, no excuse to run it better than they have this season. They should find a way to get it done because Detroit has proven, and you talked about more injuries up front, there is no excuse for them to not find a way to run this ball effectively in this game. But yet again, we've talked about that this already this year, and that has obviously been a lost cause here on the podcast. So I don't want to get into why, but what are your thoughts about how the Bears will fare on the ground? And I know you want to talk about that potential change up front.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't had a chance to listen to Matt Nagy's press conference from yesterday, go ahead and listen to it. But basically, a reporter asked him whether or not there would be a switch on the offensive line. James Daniels and Cody Whitehair, center to guard, making that switch. He didn't answer the question, but look, not answering the question is kind of giving us an answer that this could be a possibility come Sunday, that you're going to see James Daniels back at left guard, Cody Whitehair back at center. And I think that's for the best right now. James Daniels is not getting the protection calls that he's supposed to be doing at this point. You know, now going into week 10 of this 2019 season, there's a lot of A-gap pressure that's happening, and James Daniels is a part of it. Of course, it's a continuity along the offensive line not playing well, but I think this is the best move going forward because Cody Whitehair, at least last season, and when he was asked to play center, looked like he can handle it, right? So I think that's going to be the best move, and one for the Bears that would maybe equate to some better runs, just better offense overall. But I think that's something that needed to be done. Probably should have been done right after the bye week or, during the bye week. But again, the Bears haven't been very good at handling those situations. So we'll see if it equates to better, offense. But I think it's a move that just had to be done.
Stubborn's the word. Stubborn. It's not their inability to make the decision. It's just pure stubbornness at this point to make changes, even if they're unpopular decisions, just to do them for the better of the team. And that's been another reoccurring theme so far this season. I'll hand over to you for anything else on either side of the ball. One quick tidbit. The Lions' struggles maybe make sense on defense when you remember that their defensive coordinator, Paul Pasqualoni, he was a defensive line coach in Chicago in 2014 under Mel Tucker. So maybe Detroit should have saw this coming all along. We just wanted to throw that out there because nothing like throwing a Mel Tucker reference here in Week 10 of the NFL season for the Chicago Bears. But how about you, Nick? Anything else on either the Bears' offense or the Detroit Lions' defense that you want to make sure we kind of talk about?
I think when I was just watching the film, Josh Jacobs had a lot of success running to the left side of that defensive front for the Lions. So maybe that's a side where you get James Daniels at his not natural position, but back to where he was actually playing well in his first year in Chicago, that left guard. Just have him go forward, kind of maul over some guys instead of having to diagnose, mentally be prepared of what's coming at you. That might cause some success for this Bears rushing attack. But look, there's a lot of opportunities for this Bears offense, especially given the way the Lions have played defense. Whether or not to take advantage of it, probably we'll come see Sunday. But the way they played this whole season doesn't look like it's going to play out that way.
All right, it's time to find out who has the edge. I'll go ahead. I guess I'm Mr. Trenches today. Sorry, Brandon, or just throw back to Brandon. But I'm going to take the Lions pass rush versus that Bears offensive line. And when you're looking at the Lions, they can barely muster around 2 sacks per game. But guess what, Nick? They're still going to get the edge. Do you know why? Trubisky gets sacked about 3 times a game, and a lot of the sacks, they're on the offensive line, but some of them as well, they're on Trubisky. And he's going to allow, and I talked about this last week too, I guess I'm just reiterating myself, it's a story where we're at, but Trubisky tends to allow the pass rush to become more of a factor than it should be. He makes every time he drops back in the pocket, he's seeing ghosts, he's having happy feet, he's just making mild pressure, seeming like it's overwhelming amount of pressure, and that's going to just be enough to give Detroit the edge here. But even guys like Flowers and Kennard coming off the edge, again, the Bears tackles haven't been playing well, and those 2 guys have 50 pressures and 7 sacks combined this year. And also inside, Akwara, he's no slouch, and he's going to have Rashad Coward, so that should be a pretty interesting matchup too. So unfortunately, Lions pass rush is going to give the edge here. What about you with the Lions run defense versus the Bears ground game?
So I am going to give this one to the Bears, and it really is David Montgomery's the reason. He makes yards happen regardless if they're there to be had. And maybe look, the switch from center to guard is not official, but that's looking like it's going to be a real possibility come Sunday. But I'm hoping that creates some kind of impact for this Bears offensive line to just gel for the first time all season, and it is against a favorable opponent. So this could just be their coming out party for the rushing aspect of this game. So I will have to give it to the Bears on that one.
All right, Lions secondary versus the Bears passing attack. Who's going to suck it up more, I guess would be the way we're going to say it.
We like the Bears wide receivers. We really do, but you have number 10 throwing. And I don't know if I can give him the advantage there. Obviously, look, it's everyone outside of Darius Slay. So there's a lot of, again, I said this earlier, opportunities to be had. Whether or not they're going to take advantage of, I'm going to have to give it to the Bears.
All right.
Yeah, I have to give it to the Bears on that one.
All right, X Factor time. I'm going to give my X Factor real simple, short and sweet, to the point. David Montgomery. Like I said, there's no excuse for the Bears not to be able to run the football. If they can't, they're going to be one-dimensional, and that's a perfect way to let Detroit's defense still find a way to stop you when they haven't stopped any offense all year long. So for me, David Montgomery is the easy one. Teams have been running all over this defense, and Montgomery can't get going. The offense is going to suffer as a result. Real simple, short, sweet, to the point. But Nick, how about you? Who's going to be your X Factor?
I'm going with Mitch Trubisky, Will. And I voiced my opinions on Mitch, but look, if he has a good game, this is not only going to impact the offense, but also the defense as well. He had his breakout game. Well, he obviously against Week 4 against Tampa Bay, but it was Week 10 last year against these same Lions at Soldier Field where he did have a very successful game. This Lions defense isn't good, and it can be exploited even with simple passes. I think Mitch physically can make the throws. He just isn't. I think it somehow, some way kind of clicks even a little bit, but you can't. Here's the thing, and you mentioned it, Will, earlier. Don't take a lot from this game. If the Bears do have success on offense, that doesn't mean they're a good offense. By any means, no. You can't get sucked into what could be if they do have success in this game because it's a bad defense. But, again, they should be able to move the ball. And I expect should. That's the key. I don't know if that should be integrated somehow in the episode for this podcast. Should or something. Could, should, would, but probably not.
Yeah, and it should. It used to be they will, or they would, or they most likely, and it's literally, maybe they should. There's nothing. The only people stopping them are themselves on offense this week. Let's be honest. The only people that are going to stop this Bears offense is everyone on this Bears offense, including Matt Nagy as the play caller. Simple as that. Time for the final segment of our show, and let's go ahead, Nick. Anything on special teams this week?
Not really. No.
Cool. Same. Moving on. Bold prediction. What do you got?
Oh, man. So, bold prediction, I don't know why I'm having an affection for Mitch Trubisky this week, but I feel like you've said it. This Lions defense has given up 350 yards, consistently all season. Mitch Trubisky, bold prediction, you guys, is going to throw. Oh, man, I wish I had the stats what he had last year. 325 yards and 3 touchdowns. Breakout game, makes the easy throws. It's going to be inflated because lots of yak, too. I'm expecting lots of yak from these wide receivers. So that's a bold prediction. 325 passing and 3 touchdowns.
Nice. Ours go kind of hand in hand. Going bold for me, Allen Robinson. He'll end up as the game's leading receiver on both teams in catches and total yards. And again, that's pretty damn tough. You have Galladay and Jones on the other side. So for me, if Allen Robinson ends up being that leading receiver and he's going to draw Darius Slay a lot, that's going to be a good thing for Chicago when it's all said and done. All right, but getting back to realism, who's going to be the MVP?
MVP will be David Montgomery. I think this is a game, setting up for him to have a good day on the ground. Just they got to commit to it, and we'll see if the offensive line shakeup, if it does happen, plays a factor in that. But realistically, it should be David Montgomery being the most valuable Bear in this matchup.
Yeah, it should be. And for all the reasons I outlined for why he's my X Factor is everything why I think he will be the MVP. Make sure the Bears aren't one-dimensional, take advantage of Detroit's inability to stop the run, and help balance time of possession. Remember, the Bears couldn't hold the ball for more than 30 seconds at a time in the first half last week. David Montgomery needs to be involved. He needs to change that. And if it doesn't happen, the Bears are screwed yet again. They're going to really just put themselves way behind the 8 ball for just, now I'm not going to say the second straight week. This will be the 5th consecutive week, which is Yeah. All right. So anyway, game prediction, Nick.
All right, I'm doing it again, you guys. I have the Bears winning. I'm going to be at this game. I don't know if I'm doing that for the sake of seeing a win, but I do have the Bears winning 26-20. Not your typical score with 26, but I do have the Bears winning this one. Not to say that this puts their season back on track by any means, but this is November, an indoor team like the Lions coming out. It's just Soldier Field. It's hard to lose 5 games straight. It really truly is. This Bears team has a lot of talent. We all know that, but I think this is a good opportunity for them to at least get one win under the belt after going, a month and a week without their last victory.
Okay, I need to know how you get 26. Are you doing 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns, 4 field goals? Or are you doing 4 touchdowns, 2 missed extra points?
No, I'm doing 3 touchdowns, a field goal, and a safety. Is that
there we go. See,
okay.
There's so many ways to get to the same number. I was going through my head. I was like, I hope to God he's not predicting missed extra points here.
Yeah, no. Going 3 touchdowns, field goal, safety. I had to make sure that added up to 26.
It did.
Too.
It does. That makes sense. I think so. I'm actually just trusting you. I'm not doing the math in my head.
Yeah.
21, 24.
Got it.
26. We're all on the same page. Speaking of 24, that's how many points I have the Lions scoring. And the Bears, I got them at 17. Only one other team has scored less than 23 against Detroit this year. The Bears are going to be the second. I'm sorry. They can't find a way to score 20 points. They just can't. They haven't. They've been going against some susceptible defenses. They haven't found a way to do it. So for me, I just think the Bears are the lack of energy and just the lethargicism that I saw from this offense last week in a game that mattered against the Eagles, that there's real reason to play that game, and they just rolled over. I'm sorry, but I just don't see him doing it this week. I don't care if the opponent's a lesser opponent. I don't see him doing it. So for me, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go against the Bears, which I've only done it twice in the last 2 seasons, and this is the second week in a row. So there you go in terms of where's Will's mindset on this team. But, Nick, what's going to be your confidence meter and your final thought?
Oh, confidence meter is like a 3 right now that the Bears are actually going to win. Again, being hopeful here. So, again, this is going to be it's 2 teams that are very identical. 3-4-1 are the Detroit Lions. The Bears are 3-5. So they're very identical. The Detroit Lions have lost a couple of, hard-fought matchups, and the Bears have just not looked good on offense in almost every single matchup. So, yeah, that's my confidence in this one, and that's about it. What are you feeling in terms? Obviously, you had the Bears losing, so is that like an automatic 0?
It's less than 5 when I have them losing. I'm at about where you said 3. I had a 3-4, so I was somewhere in the middle. I'll give it a 3.5. And to me, it's going to be a very interesting game to watch. Again, a fun matchup between the Bears defense and that Lions offense. I really think that's going to be a real, true chess match through and through. But then on the flip side, like we said, it's going to be a stink fest. Like, really, who's going to outsuck the other team? And that's just where we're at when it's against the Bears offense and the Detroit Lions defense. I feel like it's going to be one of those games where the Bears will be close. Throughout the entirety of this game, they'll keep themselves within a score and keep us kind of strung along for all 4 quarters. But I think they'll do a couple things. Either it'll be penalties, which we had issues with last week, offense not doing what they should be doing against the defense, which they should be taking advantage of. Whatever the case may be, the Bears are going to find a way to do what they've done all year, and that's find a way to put themselves on the wrong side of the final score. And again, what it all comes down to is look at the effort against the Eagles, a game that mattered, against a really good team, and they just didn't show up to play. One other thing, or actually a couple, I want to show you what's really weird to reciprocal right now in terms of the Bears' offense and the Detroit Lions defense, Nick. The Bears' offense ranks 27th in points scored. The Detroit Lions defense ranks 27th in points allowed. The Detroit Lions on, let's see, what else? On pass yards per game allowed, the 30th. The Bears are 30th in passing yards total. So it's 20-7, 27, 30, and 30. I think there was one more here, but I lost it. But the fact that they're so reciprocal to one another in terms of just so bad on each side is really uncanny. And the last thing I want to mention just for this week is, Nick, wait until you have kids and you have to explain why the Bears aren't winning and why a quarterback, which I used to kind of, to my kid, talk up so much. Oh, Mitchell Trubisky, this, like last season, he's going to be really good. And I bought him a Trubisky jersey, and it's always been in the front of the closet to wear on Mondays after game days. And all year, Nick has been going further and further back in the closet over these 5 weeks. Like, nope, we're not wearing that. We're not wearing that. And sitting there playing Madden, he's like, so why is Trubisky bad now? What happened? And then trying to explain it to a 6-year-old. So tough. But it makes you really think because you have to explain it to on that easy of a level. And it's real sad when you actually have to do that. So wait for it.
And that's been a common theme for a lot of Bears fans over the last since they won the Super Bowl back in '85. So it's still continuing, which is very sad.
Yeah, it's like, oh, why is Trubisky bad now? I'm like, well, I wish I can give you the exact answer. It's called regression. It just happens. It's crazy. It really is. But do you have anything else for this episode? I said express show, and we're already at minute 40, which is shorter than normal, but it went a little longer than I thought it would, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is going to be obviously a divisional game where I expect to be close in the end. And like you said, I think let's see which team sucks less.
Great. This is what I love when the Bears don't have meaningful games here in November. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed this game preview. And again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Next, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this week's preview with Will Ingles' 5 matchups to watch. And you'll be hearing from Nick and I, not this Nick, not Nicholas Moriano, but Nick Assen, myself, and Will Ingles after the final whistle on Sunday. But until next time, bear down, Chicago.